What's happening, financial coaches? It is Pete here. I want to talk to you today about presentation. So I was working with a friend of mine who is kind of hitting the circuit and doing some presentations. And, as we were kind of going through what makes a good presentation, my buddy here is a good speaker. He's been in some interviews, panel discussions, things like that. I think, he's a very talented guy, but he really hasn't had a canned presentation. So the capability to do a very good canned presentation is there, good instructional, educational presentation, but he really hasn't done it. And I could probably do another video on how do we come up with a topic that is right for you based on your lifestyle, your experiences. How do we find something that is uniquely you, but also something where you can add specific value. But what I want to talk today is kind of the most basic core elements of a presentation that has that wow. So I think a lot of times, especially in the world of finance, personal finance, investments, all these types of things, it's just education. We don't really think about, hey, how do we deliver this in a way that is inspiring? It's kind of more, here is the information, here's the research, whatever it might be. And so I wanted to share with you kind of 4 things. You can certainly have more or less, but this is just kind of a core general framework, stuff that I look for, try to put in my presentations, if that makes sense. So first of all, one is the big promise. And you probably have seen something like this on infomercials, where they're telling you, listen, do you want to be rich? Do you want to have a jet like me or whatever, right? So kind of the big promise. Now, it doesn't have to be that grandiose. What I'm thinking about the big promise is how can you live comfortably without a budget? That would be a big promise. A lot of people have to budget very strictly. They have to watch all those dollars and cents everywhere to make sure that everything adds up right. So, the big promise doesn't have to be big in terms of wealth or riches or anything like that. But the big promise is, what in a succinct, clear way are we going to deliver today? And what is interesting enough that it really captures my attention, right? So it could be budgeting without a budget. It could be having a single income and raising a family of 10 comfortably with a lot of fun. It could be retiring at 45. It could be, whatever it might be. Any of these kind of things that would get people's attention. It's not clickbait, but it's kind of delivering right at the beginning what the point of your presentation is going to be. So, in the YouTube world, we would call like this the hook. So, a lot of YouTube videos will be something like, I'm going to show you how to ski in the next 15 minutes. I'm going to show you how to build an addition on your house today in 1 hour, whatever it might be, right? And then they go into that, how they're going to do it. So making the big promise, number 1. Number 2 is establishing personal authority. So this is a situation where a lot of people think, hey, if I just produce the right information, if I just provide you, the relevant data here, that's all well and good. But why should I listen to you? Especially if you're going to tell me something specifically about, how to raise 10 kids on a single income and do it with joy and comfort and financial freedom, then I might listen to you because you've done it, right? And so I'd say, hey, I can take that and figure out how to raise 2 kids, right? If you can do 10 or whatever it might be, or how to retire early. Well, if you retired early, well, then I'm going to listen to you. So establishing some personal authority, because if I've heard a lot of presentations, I bring this up because someone gets up there and they want to share, and I've been to presentations where they're like, how you can make a 6-figure income, how you can write a book, how you can be a professional speaker, how you can succeed in your job, right? All of these different topics. And then I find out, or sometimes it's not until the Q&A where you find out these people aren't doing the things themselves that they're promising to do. And it's not that the information is wrong, but you can't testify that this works and this will get you to an early retirement if you haven't retired early, right? Like I said, I've been to workshops where someone's telling you how to get a book published and they haven't gotten a book published, right? I've listened to a number of people about how to have a money mindset and make 6 figures passively, and they aren't doing it. And then they talk about how, they're in a lot of debt and they're not making a lot of money. I have listened to speakers talk about, how important it is to have all these different streams of income, how to, create all these passive, 5, 6 passive streams of income, and then talk about how, well, they haven't done it yet themselves, but this is the information. And you can sit through these and think, hey, these are really good, logical, reasonable pieces of advice. But what I find is that if you don't have someone who has personal authority and experience, it's very surface level. As soon as you ask exactly, how did you do this, or how did you keep balance, or how did you set up your business, or what did you use for bookkeeping, or whatever, and they haven't done it, they don't answer questions that are just below the surface. So I'm not saying that the information is wrong, but when you have that personal authority, it's going to hit a lot more, and that Q&A is going to be way more powerful, and people are going to buy into it because they say, hey, you did it, I want to hear how, and that will be credible to me, and I will take that advice and apply it to my own life. All right, so what is number 3? It's delivering on the how. So if you make this big promise, you say, not only am I going to tell you how to retire early, I retired early. Let me tell you how I retired early. So this might seem pretty obvious, like, hey, if you're going to do an educational workshop or presentation, you're going to tell them how to do it. Well, a lot of people kind of confuse this with, I can give you some ideas. I think in a lot of ways, we don't want all of the inventory of ideas. What we want to know is your personal story, your personal journey, especially when you have that credibility. How did you do it? Maybe some of these things are different. When I first started out in financial advising, I would go to every lunch and learn where there was a very successful financial advisor. And they would be happy to answer any questions. They didn't really come with a presentation or anything like that, but then you'd have all these new advisors, and for that 1 hour or something, and sometimes a panel discussion, it's an open forum to just ask them, anything you want. And so many people asked, what are they doing today? Oh, well, I've got this assistant, I've got a couple office professionals, I've got a couple associates, I've got this big office, or whatever it might be. I really set my hours. And none of that is really relevant. What we want to know is how they did it. And it was really the questions about, like, what did you do 15 years ago, 20 years ago? What did you do the first year you started, that are really more important. So I really don't want to know, just kind of the outcomes of it, but I want to know what you did specifically. And you could say, hey, some of these guys, they were like, listen, I just cold call people, from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. cold call. Well, you can't do that. And so what you can say here is, all right, now I can't do that in the same way, right? I mean, the telephone rules are way more strict. But what you can say is, that's how they did it. And my lesson from that is that you just grind away. You do the things that you need to do. Some of the stuff that's not very glamorous, some of the stuff that's maybe pretty painful, that you kind of avoid doing. But how can we replace that, right? How can I, 15, 20 years later, after this person has found success, how can I duplicate that? I can do some of it with social media or online ads or whatever it might be, right? Or mailings or whatever, email lists. So what you're doing is you're really figuring out what worked for them, the how, and then you are taking their successes on hows and trying to figure out how you can make that happen for yourself in the current day and age, right? So, but deliver on the how. So many times, like I said, I hear people make the big promise, they say what they've done, and then they kind of, like I said, talk about the outcomes and how great their life is and all of these other things, and it really entices you to want to be like that, but then they don't give you those tips. Sometimes people are not giving those tips because they sell some sort of back-end course. I would tell you, especially if you're going to present at workshops, breakout sessions, conferences, seminars, whatever, that you need to deliver on a how there, because if you are using those as basically a funnel for marketing to your own course or something, then people are not going to be real happy about that. They're going to see it as just a 30-minute, 50-minute solicitation. So make sure you deliver on the how. Now, there might be 10 additional hows in your course. So I'm not saying that that conference organizer might say, hey, you can say, hey, you can go to my website and get more information or whatever. They might not be opposed to that. Some might be, but they are hiring you or asking you to come because they want some value delivered to the people that are there, right? And then the last piece, and this is a little bit of a softer side here, but number 4 is generate hope and actionable next steps. And I bring this up because a lot of times we'll just say, how do we do it? And then you get to the Q&A, and then you get all of these things like, hey, here's my situation. What can I do? Or, I don't have as much time as you did, or I'm not doing, I'm doing this as a side hustle, not a full-time job, or I didn't have rich parents, or, I don't have a good credit score, whatever it might be, right? So everyone's asking for kind of their own next steps. And so what you end up getting into is a lot of like individualized coaching. So what you want to do here is kind of generally provide some broad strokes about how they can go on to the next thing. And this is where, as opposed to just saying like, do it my way, I think now you can interpret, hey, in today's day and age, I would do a lot of Facebook live streams. Or, today, if I were doing this right now, I would just print out flyers and walk around my neighborhood, put them in doors or whatever. It depends on what kind of business or project you are in. But hey, what are the next things that they can do to get started, to get on that path? Because a lot of people they bought into your big promise. They're sold on it because of what you did, your personal authority on this. They love how you did it, but now everything is kind of congested. They've got this big noise of like all this stuff. They're seeing like the big rewards and the outcomes and everything like this. And now all of a sudden they need, hey, marching orders, right? Because when they leave, they have all these things that they want to do, and they'll probably start taking some notes, and then ultimately they won't do any of it, right? And maybe it's just something like budgeting, and they'll say, listen, yeah, I see the value of budgeting, and I'm going to do it, and I want to get the envelopes, and I want to get my schedule and calendar out and a spreadsheet and download some software and an app and blah, 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 and then they don't end up doing it. So what are the next things that can get them along the way and keep them enticed about continuing on this path? And like I said, it really depends on your topic, but if you can give them, hey, if I were getting started on this today, or if you want to retire early, here is what I would do today. I would log into your 401k and I would take whatever percentage contribution you are putting into your 401k from your paycheck, and I would up that to the max, or I would add 5 percentage points, or whatever it might be, right? Do that today, and then do this thing tomorrow, whatever. But something that says, hey, you can make some progress right away, feel good about it. You're kind of cutting through the clutter of all the stuff that you provided, and you're generating some hope. And like I said, show them, right? This may be a small thing, but it's going to have long lasting effects. Imagine adding 5 percentage points to your 401k contribution over the next 20 years or the next 10 years as you work. Imagine doing that and then going to your budget and trying to figure out how to reduce your spend by 10%, increase that savings rate, looking at all these levers that we're pulling, and then realizing how that age 65 retirement date just became age 61, age 53, age 49, right? I mean, so whatever it is, deliver on the next steps, and that is going to provide hope. Explain how that's moving them closer to their target. So anyway, that's just my thoughts here after I had a conversation with a buddy of mine about how to create a wow presentation, kind of 4 key elements: big promise, establish personal authority, deliver on the how, and then generate hope in the next step. So hopefully that helps. Obviously, if you want to talk to me in particular about maybe a presentation you're working on or an educational piece, I'd be more than happy to do that. But hope that helps on your journey. See you later.